Well, the weather's not as nice in the garden today as it was last week, but we still have an interesting story to talk about today, and that relates to the impact that the eventual ending of the JobKeeper package is going to have on the economy. If you recall, last week we presented you with quite a positive outlook given the 16.4% record lift in consumer sentiment, and for good reason, with Australia setting a world standard at dealing with the virus, and of course with the unexpectedly early reopening of a large part of the economy. But we also saw a very confronting employment report for April. So 900,000 people lost their jobs, 300,000 gained jobs for a net 600,000 loss in jobs. Hours worked were down 9%. Nearly 500,000 people left the workforce, discouraged about their ability to get a job, or really just discouraged by the ability to get out of the house and find a job. 750,000 people reported still having a job but having worked no hours, and over 1 million having a job but having their hours cut back substantially. Now, of course, if that 750,000 had have been registered as unemployed, that would have added about 6 percentage points to the unemployment rate. But that, of course, is why we've seen the introduction of the JobKeeper package, the $130 billion package that the government has introduced to span the 6 months ending the 25th of September for businesses to keep workers attached to the business. The government estimated that 6 million workers would be affected by this. Put that in perspective, we've got about 13 million workers in the workforce. So nearly half the workers were estimated by the government to be able to take advantage of this particular scheme. I was surprised about that number because when I think about industries that could not really justify, in my opinion, overall, the 30% or 50% reduction in revenue that is required for a business to qualify for the scheme, I thought in terms of the health sector, the education sector, other government sector, finance, mining, agriculture, construction, and utilities, and all of those sectors combined represent about 6 million workers. So when you take those out, that sort of indicates that most of the businesses involved in the left are going to be successfully applying for the payment. So I was very surprised when I heard from the Treasurer last week that more than 6 million workers are now covered by JobKeeper, and that has been explained by 835,000 businesses. What that means is that when this scheme ends at the end of September, it is going to be a massive shock to the economy. Businesses that have been able to keep workers, we saw 750,000 workers in that category, and another 1 million that are being kept on lower hours worked. That's still only nearly 2 million workers. So we're talking 6, so there must be another component there, and I suspect it is businesses that have qualified for the payment that are keeping their workers on and are using the money as a subsidy to keep their businesses going. So when the scheme comes to an end, there are a number of questions. Will the businesses that have left their workers without working at all be able to fully absorb them? Will demand have picked up sufficiently to do that? Will the businesses that are receiving subsidies now, that have allowed them to keep their workers going at full pay, will they need those subsidies? And once those subsidies go, will they have to make adjustments? So there are going to be a number of really big questions that the government needs to be answering at that time. Clearly, from my perspective, a business that was doing well before the COVID crisis, but is going to struggle initially after September, should be given some consideration for an extension of the system. Others, of course, will be unable to qualify in that way. And making that decision, the government making that decision as to how much money is available to extend the system, who should get it, who should not, is going to be absolutely critical. From my perspective, it, however, does mean that whatever the unemployment rate is at the end of September, it's unlikely to fall over that December quarter. As workers come off the JobKeeper package, demand has to absorb them. We would expect that the unemployment rate will hold pretty steady in that December quarter, despite the fact that demand will have picked up substantially. Thank you.